Welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber. Today is Friday, March the 1st. Let's get to today's top stories. Both former President Donald Trump and acting President Joe Biden visited the border yesterday, only 325 miles apart from each other. I'll give you some numbers that show you that President Trump was better received than President Biden, coming up shortly. Also, a pastor recently attended a school board district meeting, escorted out after the police said he was speaking about his faith and it didn't work. John Amanchukwu, pastor, will join me to discuss that in detail coming up. Then later, it's Friday, my friends. It means, well, every Friday I go to the mailbag, look at emails that you've sent in from all across America, right here in America's Voice Live. After all, you are the voice of America. All right. So I've spent the last week pointing out all the ways the Democrats are trying to destroy this country. There's no shortage of examples. It's increasingly reminding me of a Bible verse, Isaiah 5:20, which goes like this. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. People who call evil good and good evil have been a problem all throughout human history, as evidenced by that passage. That's exactly what a lot of the Democratic politicians in Washington are doing right now. And for most of them, it's not that they're misguided or confused. No, they know exactly what they're doing. They want to tear down the most moral system of government the world has ever known for something much less moral, all because they want one thing: power. In fact, Victor Davis Hanson explains quite clearly that they are executing the plan, and everything you see happening is by design. Listen.
Obama never moved the country as left as he wanted to. He was too timid, and he felt that he wasn't yet ready. He would hurt his legacy if he didn't get reelected or what. It was too dangerous. So now, with Joe Biden, he's living his dream. Remember what he said? He's on tape. My dream is to phone in the presidency. I would like to have a third term, but not if I had to work. I would just like to sit in my basement and just tell people what's going to do. And he said it, and that's what he's doing. Right now, the Obamas are running the country. When my point is, they want Joe Biden the way he is because he's a construct. He's just a cardboard person they cut out and they plopped him down in the basement and they make him move once in a while. And then they run all of the agencies. Obama's responsible for the border. He's responsible for the whole crime epidemic. This is what he wanted. And Biden was very useful.
People would ask me, knowing what you know now, do you wish like you had a third term? And I used to say, you know what? If I could make an arrangement where I had a stand-in, a front man or front woman, and they had an earpiece in, and I was just in my basement in my sweats, looking through the stuff, and then I could sort of deliver the lines, but somebody else was doing all the talking and ceremony. Wow. I'd be fine with it.
How can you argue with that? Just look around. Everything you see is by design. You couldn't destroy this country more thoroughly if you tried, and, well, they're trying. Take the southern border, for example. Obviously, the Biden administration and the Democrats are doing all of that on purpose, clearly. And we know President Biden is lying when he says he can't do anything about it, because we all know if he enforces the laws on the books right now, he could have stopped all of it, yet he refuses to do so. And not only does he refuse to do it, he lies about why he won't enforce our laws, which, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure is exactly immoral. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, right? And the Democrats know this is wrong, flat wrong. As shown by the lying going on, including how they are trying desperately to pin all of the problems at the southern border and illegal aliens invading this country on conservatives. That's not all they're doing. They're also engaging racism, something we all know is evil, blaming all of the country's ills on white folks that live in the country. Take a look at this disgusting moment. This segment on MSNBC, somehow the people there thought this was an appropriate thing to run, to blame white people that live out in the country for all the country's problems. Listen.
White rural rage, the threat to American democracy. And Tom, we'll start with you. Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this. So we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So you mentioned a lot of negative factors about this demographic.
Here they are, the lily white elitists, sitting around wagging their bony white fingers at their family members who just don't want to live in town, apparently. Woe unto them that call evil good. But let's head back to the border for just a moment. I want to show you one of the first things President Biden said when he spoke in Brownsville, Texas. Actually, one of the first things that came out of his mouth. It's kind of fascinating. Listen to this.
Flown over more land burned to the ground, all the vegetation gone, than this entire state of Maryland in square footage. The idea there's no such thing as climate change, I love that, man. I love some of my Neanderthal friends who still think there's no climate change. Well, my administration is going to keep building on the progress we've made fighting climate crisis, and we're going to keep help folks rebuild themselves in the wake of these disasters.
We have a collapse at the southern border, an open southern border. And yes, climate change is number one to Joe Biden. And then he calls other Americans names who thinks this is all getting blown out of proportion. Neanderthals. Very nice. But I can tell you this. I'd take a Neanderthal over what we have in the White House right now because it cannot get any worse. And at least the Neanderthal probably doesn't have the intellectual capacity to stand there and lie. Flat out lie. Is it really climate change that's causing illegals to head to our border? Of course not. Something else? Yes. Is it promises by the Biden administration that they will not be in any trouble even if they commit crimes in this country? Well, that's part of it, plus free stuff. In fact, you can commit multiple crimes, and we'll let you out every single time in many places until you murder someone, that is, and then maybe, just maybe, somebody will do something about it, which is exactly what happened with the death and the brutal murder of Laken Riley. Countless others have been murdered by illegals, murdered by the Chinese and drug cartels by way of fentanyl poisoning. The open border is killing not just hundreds of Americans, not thousands, not tens of thousands, but literally hundreds of thousands over time. And Democrats continuing to try to keep the border wide open. Well, that's not to mention what is happening to the children coming across the border and being sold into sexual slavery, or the women being raped by cartel coyotes on the way to the border. The Biden administration doesn't seem to care much about any of that at all. That, my friends, is true evil by definition, yet the Democrats and the Biden administration call it good, as evidenced by the fact that they want it to keep going. Evil twists the truth. It is its very nature because the truth is good and righteous, and one of the most sinister ways evil is able to take root is by twisting the truth to meet its own needs and its own ends, something we see the left do every day in this country. Take a look at this rant by MSNBC's Elie Mystal, and tell me if you hear any issues at all. This is him talking about the Supreme Court and the court deciding to take up Donald Trump's immunity case. Here it is.
The reason why people like Mark and people like Dahlia seem to have a crystal ball is because they're real, because they're realists, and they understand the court for what it is. And at some point, people in the media, people at home, and people sitting in the White House have to stop pretending that the Supreme Court is some kind of benign, trying to do its best institution and start to realize that there are 6 Republicans, not conservatives, Republicans on the Supreme Court who view it as their job to help the Republican Party. And until we do something about that, until we take away that power, until we draw the line on them there, they will continue to do this. They will help Trump. They will take away abortion rights. They will end affirmative action. They will liberalize gun rights. They will do all of it until we stop them.
An intervention is needed here until we stop them. We must stop the Supreme Court. Yeah, he says the conservative justices on the United States Supreme Court are the ones that are the activist judges, that are only trying to help the Republican Party when everyone that can see knows it is the leftist judges doing exactly that. He is copying one of the left's greatest strategies. Whatever you're doing, no matter how outrageous, blame the other side of the very same thing. The left does this very, very well, by the way, every single day. And I don't mean to tell you that the average Democrat on the street is evil. I don't believe that. I don't. But the people manipulating them, controlling the propaganda message, they certainly are. Now, just think about it. This is a party in the Democrats that say, in order to protect freedom and democracy, we must jail the chief political rival so he can never run for office, never win an election. Every one of us knows that is not how freedom or democracy or this republic is supposed to work. Thankfully, it seems to be backfiring on the Democrats. As long as Trump can stay out of jail, at least, here's Victor Davis Hanson, another brilliant analysis of what is ultimately going on around us every single day. Here he is.
It's really the most remarkable meltdown of a presidency we've seen in our modern era, and it's juxtaposed with probably the greatest political recovery of Donald Trump since Richard Nixon in 1962. And Donald Trump, the more they try to demonize and incarcerate him or use lawfare against him, the more popular he becomes. So it's bizarre how things have just flipped since 2021. It's remarkable, and I think they're in a dilemma. And they know what they have to do, but they don't know how to do it and when to do it.
When to do it. I also have to point out the man the Democrats take all their strategy from, Saul Alinsky, wrote a book called Rules for Radicals. I'm sure you know that. And it described pretty well everything the Democrats are doing right now. It told them how to take over America. We could do a whole show on it, really. And in the book, on one of the very first pages, it reads this way: lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from all of our legends, mythology, and history. And who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which? The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom. Lucifer. Yep, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. There's your wake-up call for a Friday.